Ground lesson number 2, which should be lesson number 1. But today's ground lesson is going to be about ADM. Just to give you a heads up, there's an acronym for everything in aviation. And ADM stands for Aeronautical Decision Making. I'm going to write that down because it's important. I don't have the best of handwriting, but bear with it. Aeronautical decision making. This is basically your go or no-go decision. So are we going to fly today or not? How do we know if we're going to go fly? What factors come into play? What considerations do we have to take? When we go flying, we have to think about things like us, the aircraft, outside, restrictions, weather. But to put it all in one word, there's an acronym for that. So we are going to use the acronym here called PAVE. And before you come to fly, run this acronym against yourself and against the factors that are out there, and then make the decision if you should fly on that day or not. Let's start with the P. The P in PAVE stands for the most important person, which is pilot. You're going to run an assessment of yourself to know that if you are fit to fly that day or not. There are different factors to think about, but to make it easy, we also have an acronym for that one, and we call it I'm safe. This is I'm safe vertically. We're going to list it horizontally. The I stands for illness. So if you're sick and you think that you could handle it on the ground, you might not be able to handle it in the air. An example of this would be if you have some sinus pressure on the ground, you might be able to deal with it on the ground, but as you get to the air, lower pressure, it might start hurting even a lot more. When you're training, you'll always have an instructor there to back you up, but you don't want to get into the habit of trying to test the limits. If you're sick and then you know you shouldn't be going out, flying the plane is not the best of decisions to make. The M is medication. To start, there's a list of medication that the FAA does not want you flying with. You want to look those up, and if you think that you're on one, you probably shouldn't be flying. Other than that, if the medication says do not operate heavy equipment, you probably shouldn't be operating an aircraft, even though these aircraft, these small single-engine aircraft, are probably not as heavy as your car. But if you think that normally that you take a medication, you're fine with it, and it says it causes drowsiness, but you never get drowsy, when you get into the sky, that might change. So you don't want to risk it. If you're on a medication that could adversely affect your abilities to control or handle an aircraft, don't go flying. S is stress. Talking about stress will lead up to leading up to it. Let's talk about accidents. So normally most accidents in aviation happen because the pilots they did more than one small mistake. So it's normally not a big mistake. It's normally a series of small mistakes. As a new pilot and as a pilot in general, if you come in and you're stressed out and you take the aircraft and you have a little small issue, such as let's say an alternator goes out, which is not a big deal. You have about, in general, 20 minutes probably to get it down on the ground. But you might forget about that and then make another mistake thinking about this, and then one mistake leads to another, and then maybe to an unfortunate incident or accident. So if you're stressed out, the place to blow off the steam is not the aircraft. A stands for alcohol, which is self-explanatory. But the FAA wants you to know that your blood alcohol content cannot be more than 0.04. And also we have a saying of 8 hours bottle to throttle. So from the last drink, you gotta wait 8 hours before you can operate an aircraft. Taking this a step further, if you're in training, if you're hungover, you probably don't want to come. Training does get expensive, and if you're here and your instructor doesn't pick up on it in time, and then you go flying, well, hey, you're spending hundreds of dollars, and it's probably going to be a waste of your time. But the instructor will have to turn the plane around and bring it back, and you'll need to wait for your next lesson to restart. The F is fatigue. We're going to talk about fatigue is if you're tired or if you're hungry, solve those two situations before you show up to fly. So if you're tired, get a nap, get some sleep in. If you're hungry, grab a bite. A cranky person in an aircraft is not best of people in a plane. It's supposed to be a good time, so feed the belly. And the E is emotion. When it comes to emotion, we'll just say that be level-headed when you come into the aircraft to operate. We don't want to. We want a level environment, just to keep it simple. Run this checklist against yourself before you show up. And normally here, as long as you do not abuse this checklist, your instructor will understand if anything comes up, even if it's last minute. Bring it to our attention, and you call out of the flight. So I'm going to write PAVE up here, that way we don't forget it. The A in PAVE is going to be aircraft, abbreviated AC. When it comes to the aircraft should be properly inspected, legally inspected. It should be in good condition before you come fly it. Any normal person walking up to an aircraft will know, even if it was supposed to be inspected properly, you can walk up to it. If it has a low tire or a flat tire, you know that it's not going up to fly. If it has a dent in the wing or open panels underneath the wing, or if there's a leak next to the wheels, it should be inspected by a mechanic before you go. So take a look at the aircraft, make sure it jives for your flight, make sure it looks safe, and even after you start it, when you take it, make sure your run-up jives. Don't scratch anything off just because 90% of the time you showed up, it was a good aircraft, and now this one gauge is low, it will be fine. It won't be fine. Let a mechanic say it will be fine, then come and take it. Planes are dime a dozen, so you could just come, park a plane, and take another one. And yeah, we want to be safe here. Other than that, let's talk about the inspections the plane needs to have. It comes in an acronym, and it's called AVIATE. The A stands for annual. Your aircraft needs to be inspected every 12 calendar months by an inspection authorization. That's a type of mechanic in aviation. The V is a VOR check. It's a navigational equipment. You're on your VOR receiver. And this needs to be inspected every 30 days. The I is actually a 1, and it stands for the 100-hour inspection. This can be done by an IA or an A&P. And an IA is an A&P. A 100-hour inspection needs to be done every 100 hours the plane flies, and only if it's for hire. So if you own your own personal aircraft and you just fly personal trips, nothing for work, you're not renting the plane out, the plane's not on a charter service, you do not need to do this. But it is a good idea that the mechanic does, or a mechanic does, see a plane every 100 hours. A 100-hour could be included in an annual. So if an annual is signed off, they'll normally sign off a 100-hour. But it won't happen the other way around. If a 100-hour is signed off, an annual is not signed off. After that, we have the other A is altimeter, which is actually the pedostatic system. And this needs to be inspected every 24 calendar months. Then you have the T, which is the transponder, which also needs to be inspected every 24 calendar months. And we have the E, which is the ELT, which is an emergency locator transmitter. And that needs to be inspected every 12 calendar months. And the battery replaced as necessary. Either the battery needs to be replaced either at the expiration date or whenever 50% of the battery is used, whether it was actually used or for testing. If you drained it halfway down, you need to replace that battery. So these are the inspections that the aircraft requires. Now, if a mechanic tells you, hey, they're done, but you walk up to the plane, there's discrepancy in the plane, there's a piece missing, or a big piece missing, leave that plane alone, walk back, and get another plane. So that's the aircraft. The V in PAVE is actually for environment. So the V is environment. Now, what can the environment include? It could include the big one, which is weather. And should we be flying in this weather? Today, we do have a rainy day. It's cloudy. If you're not instrument rated, it's probably not a good idea to go flying today. If you are instrument rated, but not proficient, it's probably not a good idea to go flying today. But other than that, let's assume that we're just VFR pilots, basically only flying by what we see visually outside. It's clear that we're not going to fly today. But if we show up and maybe if the cloud deck is lower than what we can personally accept or what we personally feel comfortable with, which is our personal limitations, maybe we won't go. Maybe I'll set the standard for myself to fly only if the cloud deck is at least 3,000 feet. Also, if there's winds that I'm not comfortable with, I only have one runway. If the wind is coming off the side, that will create a crosswind. I'm not comfortable with a crosswind with more than 10 knots. Then I won't go fly that day. Other than that, the other normal weather phenomena. But taking it a step forward, what if there are restrictions? Restrictions in the area. Some restrictions you can fly through if you know how to navigate them or if you know how to get the proper clearances. If we're not comfortable getting these proper clearances, we probably shouldn't be going that day. Performance of the aircraft. Now, are we taking off of a shorter runway, a smaller runway? Do I feel comfortable clearing this obstacle? Am I around mountains? Do I feel comfortable with the environment of the airport itself? Am I leaving a Bravo or a more busy airport? Should I bring somebody with me to help me out? So we want to take into consideration the performance of the aircraft. Can I clear maybe an obstacle at the end of the runway? Do I feel comfortable doing it myself? You want to take into consideration your own capabilities. Well, there was one more that I wanted to say. Coming back to the environment and sticking it together with somewhat of the aircraft, let's include aircraft in environment as well. So let's say we have a new aircraft. If we're not familiar with this new aircraft, if it's not similar to the ones that we used to fly, maybe we want to take somebody with us and make the environment of the aircraft more comfortable for us. Not necessarily an instructor at that point if you're a full-on pilot, but perhaps somebody that's flown the aircraft before, that's familiar with the systems and how to operate the aircraft, and to give us pointers on that. But if you do need, or if you do feel more comfortable, take an instructor with you. So that's environment, and anything else that you can think of about the environment that that might adversely affect your flight for that day. The last thing on PAVE will be the E, which is external pressures. Now, a lot of people don't think about this, but it is very, very, very serious. So external pressures. What do we mean by external pressures? We mean that we don't want anybody to force us to fly. We don't want anybody to convince us that we should fly or that we could fly or push us beyond our personal limitations that we've set for ourselves. For instance, let's say I'm a freshly rated pilot, and I come and I'm talking to my friends, and I told them I just got my pilot's license, and let's go up for a flight, and then we schedule a day. The day is supposed to be full on clear. We show up at the airport, and I feel a breeze coming through. I pre-flight the plane, and maybe that breeze turns into a gusting wind. And as a fresh pilot, I haven't flown in 20 or 30 knot winds, and I don't feel comfortable doing that. It's my responsibility at that point to pull the plug on this flight, to tell my friends, hey, let's go. Even if some of my friends might say, hey, you're a pilot, you could handle this, let's do it. We trust you, we have faith in you. And they actually trust you and have faith in you to make the right decision, because at that point, it's not that your instructor you're flying with anymore or another pilot that maybe has more experience in those types of winds or those type of conditions. You are the person that everybody is relying on that point. So it's your responsibility to make the right decision. Also, let's talk about in the air as well when it comes to external pressures. If you're flying with somebody else and maybe there's a short runway that you're not comfortable with and you don't want to land there, maybe it's a full-on, let's say full-on crosswind or anything, an obstacle prior to it on the more favorable runway, and you want to just turn back and go home, you have the fuel, or go to another airport, and your partner there is telling you, hey, no, we could do it. It's your responsibility to say, hey, I don't feel comfortable doing this. Let's just go back. All right, don't let anybody force you to do anything in this business or in this industry that you feel uncomfortable with. This is on a personal level, and then when we're private pilots, normally this stuff evolves as you get into the industry. Some people might say that companies, try to convince you to fly when you're tired. Maybe at that point, well, you're tired, and tired was the beginning of the lesson. I'm safe. At that point, it's your responsibility to say, hey, I'm tired, I'm fatigued, I cannot do this flight, I cannot safely perform this trip. At that point, it's not just you, it's you and everybody that's behind you that's counting on you to make this flight safely to the destination. And if you cannot do that, it is your responsibility to pull the plug. So don't let anybody force you to ever do a flight that you don't feel comfortable with. And that's external pressures. And that, all in all, is PAVE. Remember, pilot, aircraft, environment, and external pressures. Think about what else could apply. Get to know this stuff real well. It goes with you throughout your entire aviation career. And remember, it's always an option to take off, but it's not an option to land. If you take off, you're going to need to land the aircraft. So make the right decision.